He is 18 years old. He just finished high school. His dad points at the horizon and says three words: go to college. He doesn't ask why. He has been hearing it his whole life. College equals job. Job equals money. Money equals good life. He spends 4 years at university, graduates with honors. Mom and dad are proud. He walks out into the job market with his degree under his arm and a new shirt on his back. 5 years later, he is earning minimum wage and sharing a one-bedroom apartment with 3 other graduates. Today we explain why more college education does not mean more money, because the system that promised to make you wealthy has spent decades doing the exact opposite. And it is doing it right now to millions of people who did everything they were told. To understand the problem, you have to go back in time. The year is 1970. Out of every 10 people in the workforce, 1 went to college. The other 9 worked, started businesses, learned trades. Having a degree was rare. It was scarce. And large companies desperately needed college-educated people for management, analysis, finance, strategic roles, positions with real responsibility, real salaries, real futures. There were very few people with degrees. Each one was worth a lot. That is called scarcity. When something is scarce, its price goes up. A graduate in 1970 got a job quickly. Good salary, promotion within 5 years, comfortable retirement. 4 years of college, 40 years of returns. It made sense. Parents saw that. They told their children, go to college. Their children went. It worked. That was the generation that got the deal they were promised. The problem is that every generation after them received the same advice, without updating the data, without checking whether the world had changed, without asking whether the deal still existed. Because the system was designed so that the number of degrees and the number of good jobs would never grow at the same pace. The decades passed. More and more people went to college. Governments funded more places. Universities built more campuses. The number of graduates exploded. In the modern job market, out of every 10 workers, 6 have a college degree. It is no longer special. It is standard. And every year, employers receive an avalanche of graduates, all looking for the same type of job, all with similar qualifications, all expecting the salary the degree promised. But the number of skilled positions did not grow as fast as the number of graduates. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York confirmed this. The underemployment rate for recent college graduates hit 42.5% in late 2025. That is the highest level since 2020. More than 40% of graduates who found work are doing jobs that do not require a degree. That is what economists call oversupply. When supply exceeds demand, price falls. The price of graduate labor falls. Starting salaries stagnate. Time to find the first job increases. Conditions get worse. An employer posts a job opening online. Within 5 hours, they receive 100 applications. They can pick whoever they want. They can pay less. If you do not accept the conditions, there are 99 others waiting. You did everything your parents told you. You studied. You passed. You got the degree. But the market had another surprise waiting. Here is that surprise. With so many graduates flooding the market, the degree itself stopped being a differentiator. Everybody has one. So employers started asking for more. A master's degree on top of the bachelor's. Fluency in 2 or 3 languages. 5 years of experience for an entry-level position. That is called credential inflation. It works exactly like regular inflation. The same amount of effort now buys you less career. What used to get you hired with a bachelor's degree now requires a bachelor's, a master's degree, and 2 years of unpaid internships. Years of education stretch longer. Entry into the real job market gets delayed. Productive years shrink. A graduate from the previous generation entered the workforce at 22. Today's graduate enters at 27. 5 years of difference in salary accumulation, professional contacts, and real-world experience. 5 years without income. 5 years with expenses. 5 years accumulating debt. And the debt is the part nobody told you about honestly. Total student loan debt in the United States has reached $1.833 trillion. That is spread across 42.8 million borrowers. The average graduate leaves university owing $30,000 to $40,000. If they went to graduate school, that number can reach $80,000 or more. The average starting salary for a bachelor's degree holder is $60,000. That sounds reasonable. But the debt-to-income ratio for a new graduate is 58%. That means 58 cents of every dollar earned is already spoken for before they buy food, pay rent, or put gas in the car. They pay the minimum each month. The debt barely moves. Interest accumulates. 10 years later, they still owe $30,000, not because they were irresponsible, because the salary was never going to cover what the system promised it would. That is called the education debt trap. And the debt is not even the worst part. The worst part is what many of them actually learned inside the university. The economy needs people who can build digital tools, people who understand supply chains, people who can analyze real data in real time. Universities are producing people who can write 40-page reports that nobody reads. People who can analyze a case study from a company that went bankrupt 30 years ago. People who know the theory of economic models from 1987. That knowledge is not useless, but the gap between what universities teach and what the market needs in 2026 is enormous. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink said in March 2026 that this year's graduates could experience the highest jobless rate in years. Part of the reason, he said, is artificial intelligence making entry-level roles obsolete. The jobs that graduates were trained to fill are disappearing while they are still in school. They graduate prepared for the economy of 20 years ago. They have to survive in the economy of today. And here is the question nobody asked, because nobody told them the truth. The system feeds itself. Universities charge tuition. More students equals more revenue. Their interest is to fill classrooms, not guarantee employment. Professors need students to teach. Fewer students equals fewer jobs for professors. Banks that lend money for tuition collect interest for years. More students taking loans equals more money for banks. Governments measure educational success by graduation rates. More graduates equals better statistics. And families repeat the advice that worked 40 years ago, without updating it, without questioning it, because it was true once. That is the system that created 42.8 million people carrying $1.833 trillion in student debt. But there are people who found a different path. They did not run from knowledge. They ran from expensive credentials that guarantee nothing. They learned skills in places that are not universities, skills the market actually pays for, not theory, practice. They entered the job market without waiting 5 or 6 years, because every year of real experience is worth more than an additional year of theory. They built their reputation through results, not through certificates. In a digital economy, a real portfolio of actual work weighs more than a piece of paper. A 35-year-old with a degree, a master's degree, multiple internships, and a polished resume. A salary that is okay, a stable job, not bad, but not the wealth the system promised. He learned too late to read the signals. the signals that warned the education system was failing long before it failed him. But there is another signal that people always ignore. It appears before every major economic collapse in history, and it is active right now. Go watch the next video where we explain exactly what it is.